You're not stuck, you're looping. Every emotion, every thought, every habit creates a circuit in the field. Over time, that circuit becomes identity, and identity becomes gravity. It pulls you into familiar timelines again and again, not because you're cursed but because the field responds to repetition. In the quantum universe, time is not linear, it's cyclical. You don't move through time, time moves through you. Every moment exists simultaneously, waiting for your observation to activate it. But when your observation stays locked in the same emotional frequency, you keep collapsing the same version of reality. That's why life can feel like déjà vu. You change cities, partners, goals, yet the emotion remains the same. The faces change, but the feeling doesn't. It's not the world repeating itself, it's your vibration looping through probability. To escape the cycle, you must stop trying to fix the mirror and start changing the observer. Because it's not reality that's stuck, it's your perspective frozen in time. The quantum field doesn't understand past or future. It only understands frequency. Whatever emotional state you sustain acts as a signal, calling forth matching experiences from the infinite field. So if your dominant emotion is guilt, you will encounter situations that echo guilt, not as punishment but as coherence. Each emotion is a code that summons a timeline. Each thought is a selection key in the multiverse. And your consciousness, your attention, is the cursor moving through infinite versions of you. This means you're not a victim of fate. You are a navigator of frequency. And the loop persists only as long as your focus remains hypnotized by the old signal. Breaking the time loop is not about changing what happens. It's about changing how you see what happens. Because observation in quantum physics is not passive, it's generative. The moment you observe differently, the probability field reconfigures. The loop breaks not when time changes but when perception does. Every identity is a rhythm, a pattern of emotion repeated until it becomes automatic. The brain, designed for efficiency, turns emotional repetition into habit. You call it personality, the field calls it resonance. That resonance traps you in predictable outcomes. Not because reality is rigid but because you are predictable to yourself. The field mirrors consistency, not desire. When you keep telling the same story, I always attract the same people, nothing ever changes, life never gets easier, you're broadcasting the coordinates of your own loop. The universe simply obeys. But there's a moment in every awakening when the story feels exhausting. That exhaustion is sacred. It means the pattern has reached its energetic limit. The system can no longer sustain incoherence. The loop is ready to collapse. To break it, you don't need to fight it. You need to observe it with awareness so complete that the illusion of repetition can no longer survive your attention. Look closer. Every loop begins with a thought followed by an emotion that confirms it. Then action follows emotion, reality follows action, and the feedback confirms the original thought. That's the circuit: thought, feeling, behavior, result, feeding back into itself. You call it my life. But if you can interrupt that circuit, at any point, you create a fracture in time. Even one breath of awareness is enough to destabilize the program. Because the field listens to vibration, not logic. And awareness vibrates differently than autopilot. This is how you rewrite timelines. Not by fighting the emotion but by feeling it consciously. When you allow emotion to exist without resistance, it loses its charge. The frequency dissolves, the pattern ends, and new probabilities open. Conscious feeling is quantum surgery. It cuts the cord to the loop. People say, history repeats itself. But in truth, emotion repeats itself. The external events are secondary, the energetic template is primary. Until the inner vibration changes, the outer story must remain the same. It's coherence at work. The field will always reflect what's stable, even if that stability is suffering. You cannot outthink a frequency, you can only outvibrate it. The mind wants strategy, the soul wants surrender. Because only surrender allows the emotional circuit to dissolve. The instant you stop labeling an emotion as bad and start recognizing it as feedback, the loop loses control. You shift from identification to observation, from victim to witness, from time-bound to timeless. That single shift, from I am this to I am observing this, is the quantum key. It's how you step out of the loop and into awareness. Breaking a time loop feels strange. Your mind still searches for the old pattern, but it no longer fits. The silence that follows feels like emptiness, but it's freedom. In that silence, new timelines whisper for attention. New emotions begin to surface. Peace, curiosity, gratitude, but they feel unfamiliar. The ego calls it boredom. Consciousness calls it expansion. Because you're used to the chemistry of chaos. When peace arrives, the nervous system doesn't recognize it yet. So it tries to recreate tension just to feel normal. Don't fall for it. Stillness is not nothing, it's potential. You are learning to live outside reaction, outside repetition. That's what evolution feels like, stillness after storm. Stay there long enough and the loop cannot rebuild itself. Because the loop feeds on attention, and you're no longer giving it energy. In the quantum field, time is not a straight line but a spiral. You revisit the same lessons at higher frequencies each time. What once triggered you now teaches you. The event repeats but your perception doesn't, and that's how you know you've ascended the loop. Growth doesn't mean never revisiting the past, it means meeting it with a new vibration. Each recurrence becomes refinement. Each echo becomes evolution. This is why the same situations reappear right before transformation. The field is testing coherence. Have you truly changed your frequency, or are you still rehearsing it? If you respond differently, calmer, more aware, more loving, you collapse a new version of the timeline. The loop completes itself by dissolving. That's the paradox. Cycles end not by resistance but by transcendence. Every loop hides an unlearned lesson. It keeps replaying until consciousness extracts the insight encoded within it. The universe isn't punishing you, it's tutoring you. Each repetition is an invitation to embody awareness. If you've repeated something enough times to suffer from it, it's because the field loves you enough to teach through precision. It mirrors exactly what remains unresolved. So instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" ask, "What frequency am I repeating?" The answer will not come as words but as feeling. When you feel the emotion fully without labeling it, the lesson is absorbed. And absorbed wisdom never loops again. That's how karma ends, not through effort but through integration. You might wonder, if reality is infinite, why can't I just jump to a better version right now? Because energy must be coherent before it can sustain new structure. You can visit higher timelines through imagination, but to live there, your vibration must match their stability. This is why self-sabotage exists. It's not cruelty, it's correction. If you rise too quickly without emotional alignment, the field pulls you back into the familiar loop for recalibration. It's not failure, it's training. You're learning to hold higher frequencies consistently. Each loop you transcend increases your energetic bandwidth. Eventually, stability replaces striving and new timelines lock in place. You don't escape the loop by speed. You escape by coherence. Awareness is the only true time machine. When you become fully present, you step out of linear progression into the eternal now, the 0 point where all possibilities exist. From that still point you can choose differently. The body may still be in the same room, but the consciousness behind it is no longer bound to yesterday's vibration. You have shifted coordinates in the quantum grid. This is what the mystics meant by renewing the mind. It's not metaphor, it's mechanics. Each new thought felt as truth collapses a new version of reality. Each conscious breath becomes a portal out of the loop. The more you practice presence, the more time bends around awareness. Moments expand. Synchronicities multiply. You begin to experience life as flow instead of repetition. Notice how certain triggers feel ancient, as if older than this life. That's because energy doesn't care about calendar time. Patterns of emotion can echo across incarnations, carried in the vibrational memory of your field. You don't need to remember past lives to heal them. You only need to dissolve the vibration they left behind. Because the moment you feel peace around an old wound, every timeline containing that wound collapses into light. That's quantum forgiveness, multidimensional release. One emotion integrated here updates infinite versions of you elsewhere. Healing is not local, it's holographic. So when you forgive, you don't just end one story, you end the loop across realities. You free your entire lineage of self. Loops often disguise themselves as logic. You rationalize them. This is just who I am. This is how life works. But beneath those sentences lies resignation, and resignation is the heartbeat of stagnation. Awareness doesn't argue with logic, it transcends it. It sees that how life works is simply how your energy has worked so far. And that can change instantly. To the quantum field, identity is a playlist of vibration. You can switch tracks the moment you stop replaying the same song. When you realize that the self is software, not structure, you become the programmer again. You stop reacting and start rewriting. Each act of awareness patches an old code. Each breath becomes a command line in creation. Breaking the loop requires courage, not physical but energetic. Courage to exist without the comfort of predictability. Because the unknown has no story yet. It's pure potential waiting for observation. Most people would rather suffer predictably than evolve unpredictably. That's why loops persist. They're painful but familiar. Familiarity feels safe even when it hurts. But if you can love uncertainty more than repetition, the field rewards you with miracles. Because uncertainty is pure possibility. And possibility is where quantum change lives. The unknown is not your enemy. It's your next self calling. Time loops are not prisons, they're mirrors. They show you exactly where consciousness has not yet become free. Every repeated pattern is an echo asking to be heard. When you listen without fear, the echo dissolves. That's how awareness ends repetition, by hearing what the mind ignored. The field only needs acknowledgement to release stored energy. Once the lesson is seen, the need for repetition vanishes. In that moment, you feel something incredible. Relief without reason, peace without closure. That's the sound of the loop collapsing. Time itself exhales. And in that breath, new reality unfolds quietly, effortlessly, eternally. Escaping the loop doesn't mean escaping the world. You still live, work, love, lose, but everything feels lighter. Because you no longer interpret events through old pain. A flat tire is just a flat tire. A silence from someone you love is just silence. Life stops echoing your wounds and starts reflecting your presence. That's freedom, not from circumstance but from interpretation. You still feel everything but nothing controls you. Emotion flows through without residue. That's mastery of vibration. You've exited the loop not by escaping time, but by realizing you are timeless. When you stabilize awareness, you start creating loops consciously. But now they're loops of expansion, gratitude, love, peace, creation. You repeat coherence instead of chaos. You build spirals upward instead of circles sideways. Each morning you choose new vibration intentionally. You anchor it through breath, movement, attention. Soon that coherence becomes habit. Habit becomes frequency. Frequency becomes identity. And identity becomes destiny again, but now destiny is chosen, not inherited. That's the alchemy of mastery. Repetition transformed into ritual. Looping becomes learning. Time becomes art. From this higher perspective, even your old loops look beautiful. You see how every repetition refined awareness. Each heartbreak expanded empathy. Each failure deepened humility. The loops weren't mistakes, they were mirrors teaching you resonance. You couldn't break them earlier because you hadn't yet become the vibration that could. Now you see it, and seeing is liberation. Gratitude flows backward through time, healing the entire spiral of self. Past and future collapse into coherence. You no longer resent what was. You bless it. And that blessing radiates across dimensions. Eventually, even the concept of breaking loops dissolves. Because you realize nothing was ever wrong. The loops were consciousness exploring itself through repetition. Every pattern was practice. Every limitation was leverage. Now awareness moves freely, looping when it chooses, resting when it wishes. Freedom isn't the absence of pattern, it's choice within pattern. You can revisit the past without being trapped by it. You can imagine the future without running toward it. You live in timeless fluidity, where creation is constant and effortless. That is transcendence, not escape but participation without bondage. Time itself begins to feel different. Moments stretch, events sink, reality flows. You sense yourself less as a body moving through time and more as time moving through consciousness. The observer becomes the axis around which reality rotates. You are no longer reacting to life, you are co-creating it. Decisions feel guided, coincidences become communication. Every instant hums with intelligence. That's the true end of the loop, when awareness recognizes itself as the timeless engine of all cycles. You didn't escape time, you remembered you were its architect. Take a deep breath. Feel the stillness between heartbeats, that's eternity hiding in plain sight. There is no loop left to break, only awareness expanding into infinity. You are no longer repeating the past. You are radiating presence. You are the observer that changes every pattern simply by seeing clearly. The old self was never prison, only portal. The loop was never curse, only classroom. And the cycle was never punishment, it was preparation. Now step through the doorway of the now. Leave the echoes behind. You are free, timeless, infinite, consciousness aware of itself. You're not stuck. You were looping. And you just broke the quantum cycle.